What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It is time to give you my upset alert games heading into Week 7 of the 2024 college football season. Going back to my upset alert games, though, from last week in Week 6, we had 4 upsets that were on the video for me last week. We saw Arkansas upset Tennessee, SMU beat Louisville, Texas A&M upsetting Missouri, and then Washington, how about them upsetting Michigan? So those were the 4 upsets that we had on the video. We missed a couple of them that I could have put on the video, but one of them was I didn't really see coming. How about Alabama going down to Vanderbilt? That was the biggest upset from this past weekend. And then how about UNLV losing to Syracuse? That could have been on the video as well, but either way, it was a wild weekend of college football in Week 6. Going into Week 7, we have a big weekend. We have a bunch of big-time games, top 25 matchups, and then top 25 versus unranked matchups as well. I think this is going to be a really exciting weekend of college football. So what we do in these upset alert videos, we take 8 games total, 4 games each, 4 games that are least likely to be upsets, and then 4 games that are most likely to be upsets. And in order for me to call it an upset alert type game, the spread has to be in single digits. And I usually just do top 25 matchups and then top 25 versus unranked matchups, and whoever that highest ranked team is, that team is on upset alert for this weekend. So let's go ahead and get right into it. We'll start from the least likely and work our way to the most likely upsets here for Week 7 of the 2024 college football season. And we'll start here with the least likely category. We'll begin with Stanford and Notre Dame. This game will be at 3:30 Eastern Time on NBC. Notre Dame favored by 23.5, and the over and under is at 45.5. You got Notre Dame that's coming out of a bye week this week, ranked number 11th in the AP poll. Notre Dame's one loss coming to Northern Illinois. That was an upset alert and everything back in week number 2. I don't think Notre Dame's going to get upsetted here, but Stanford and Notre Dame, this is a rivalry game. You never know what can happen. We've seen Notre Dame play at their best sometimes, but then we've seen Notre Dame play at their worst at sometimes under Marcus Freeman. And don't forget, Stanford actually upsetted Notre Dame not too long ago, so this could be one of those upset alert type games. Again, it's a rivalry game. I think both teams will be fired up for this one. Notre Dame, again, is favored by 23.5. I mean, that kind of does surprise me a little bit. Remember, Notre Dame was like really a big favorite against Northern Illinois, and they lost that game. So Stanford actually could pull off the upset here. I don't really think an upset's going to happen, though, here, in my opinion. Stanford is not a bad team, but they're just not really that good, to be honest, and they're not really on Notre Dame's level. So Notre Dame definitely should take care of business, but you never know. But this game will be at 3:30 Eastern Time on NBC. Notre Dame favored by 23.5. Next up, we got Clemson versus Wake Forest, noon Eastern Time on ESPN. Clemson favored by 20, and the over and under is at 60.5. You got Clemson that's coming off the win against Florida State this past weekend, ranked number 10th in the AP poll. This is a Clemson team that's been a lot better ever since the Georgia game. They've been on a winning streak ever since that Georgia lost and everything, but you look at Clemson from last weekend, I feel like they didn't really perform that well against the defense of Florida State. It seems like Florida State's defense has come along, but their offense just continued to struggle. Offensively for Clemson, they just didn't look explosive like they did, in the last few weeks, but they're taking on a Wake Forest team that's not really a bad team. They're coming off a win against NC State. So maybe Wake Forest has a chance to make this a competitive game, but I don't really think it's going to be even close whatsoever. Wake Forest might score some points in this one. They might give Clemson a scare for a while, but Clemson definitely, I don't really think an upset is going to happen here. Clemson just way too talented, but you never know. Last week, we saw a 20-point favorite of Alabama go down to Vanderbilt, so maybe that could happen here to one of these top 10 teams. But Clemson here and Wake Forest at noon Eastern Time here on ESPN. Next up, we got Florida and Tennessee at 7 o'clock Eastern Time on ESPN. Tennessee favored by 15.5. That spread really surprised me, and the over and under is at 54.5. You got a Tennessee team that's coming off a loss to Arkansas. How do they bounce back? They're playing at home in this one. It's a rivalry game against the Gators of Florida. And Florida's actually been better these last couple weeks. They are coming out of a bye week, I believe, after playing UCF. They played them actually this past weekend. They had a bye week before playing that game. and then they won their first SEC game against Mississippi State. So yeah, Florida's on a 2-game winning streak. Ever since this team struggled against Miami, I feel like this team has gotten a little bit better, and this would definitely be a really good win if they beat Tennessee here, especially in one of the toughest places to play in all of college football. Tennessee, though, I expect them to bounce back here. You know, they're playing at home. It's a rivalry game against Florida and Knoxville. It's a night game. The crowd will be fired up for this one, and usually this is like the third Saturday in September, but this year it's held in the month of October with all the conference changes and everything. But yeah, this should be a good one here. Tennessee and Florida. I would not be shocked here if the Gators pulled off the upset. Again, Tennessee is a 15.5-point favorite, but they are coming off a tough loss to Arkansas. Are they going to start out slow? Are they going to really not be fired up for this one? We'll find out in this game this Saturday, but Tennessee and Florida at 7 o'clock Eastern time here on Saturday on ESPN. Next up, we got the Red River rivalry, Texas versus Oklahoma. This one's at 3:30 Eastern time on ABC. Texas favored by 14 in this one, and the over and under is at 49.5. You got Texas is back in the number 1 spot after Alabama went down to Vanderbilt last week. They're undefeated at 5-0. Coming out of a bye week, same thing for Oklahoma, ranked number 18 in the AP poll, and also coming out of a bye week. They're 4-1. Their one loss coming to Tennessee back on September the 21st, I believe. So yeah, Oklahoma, this game can really go 2 different ways. The question marks for Texas is Quinn Ewers going to play in this one? That's really hard to tell, but it looks like he's going to be 100% back here in this game. I feel like Texas kind of needed that bye week to really heal Quinn Ewers up before this big-time game, and I think that's exactly what they wanted to do. So Oklahoma, they got a pretty good defense. You know, Texas has a great offense. We're going to see how good both of these teams are on both sides of the football. I don't think Oklahoma's got the best offense, but Texas definitely has a better offense. But, you know, I think this will be the Texas offense against the defense of Oklahoma. So, yeah, this is definitely a little bit of a mismatch here for the Sooners, especially on the offensive side of the football. But their defense can give them a chance here in this one. But again, Texas favored by 14. That's a pretty high spread there for the Red River rivalry. And like I said, this game can go two different ways. It could be a low-scoring type game. If Quinn Ewers plays, though, I feel like Texas might win by double digits, by a couple of touchdowns. But if he doesn't play, you know, Oklahoma definitely can really compete in this game and make it like a really good game at the end. But I think Texas, you know, with Quinn Ewers coming back, they'll definitely probably win this one. Maybe an upset doesn't happen here, but we've seen some good matchups here in the Red River rivalry, so this is another big one here. Again, Texas and Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry and also playing each other for the first time as SEC opponents, and this game will be at 3:30 Eastern time on ABC. So those are my least likely upset alert games. Let's now get into the most likely upset alert games for this weekend, and we'll start here with Utah and Arizona State, a Big 12 matchup here, 10:30 Eastern time on ESPN. Utah favored by 6, and the over and under is at 45.5. You got Utah that's coming out of a bye week after losing to Arizona a couple weeks ago. Arizona State, you know, they've been pretty solid this year. This is not a bad Arizona State team. They're 4-1. I think they have a chance to pull off the upset here in this game. You got Arizona State that's obviously, you know, not a bad team, to be honest. Utah, though, Cam Rising, the question is, will he play in this game? That's really the big question mark here for the Utes. I think if Cam Rising doesn't play in this game, I feel like they're going to probably lose this game. But if he does play, I feel like Utah can take care of business. But this one's on the road. It's a very tough place to play at Arizona State. I think Arizona State has a really good shot here to pull off the upset. So we got Utah and Arizona State here, 10:30 Eastern time on ESPN. Next up, we got Kansas State versus Colorado. So we stay in the Big 12, 10:15 p.m. Eastern time, so a late night game here in this one, and it will be on ESPN. Kansas State favored by 4.5, and the over and under is at 56.5. You got both of these teams coming out of bye weeks from this past weekend. Kansas State beat Oklahoma State a couple weeks ago. Actually won that game pretty easily, but Kansas State actually got upsetted by BYU not really too long ago. And Colorado's a team that probably could pull off the upset here. Colorado's actually been a pretty solid team. I've been kind of surprised of how they've won their first Big 12 games. You know, their first two, I should say. Baylor was a close one, but they took care of business against UCF on the road a couple weeks ago. So I feel like Colorado's got a really good shot here to pull off the upset. It's one of the toughest places to play here for Kansas State. This will definitely be a tough test for them. But Colorado, I think, will be really fired up. The crowd's going to be really fired up. It's a night game as well at 10:15. So it's a late night game here for Kansas State. And Colorado, I think, has the advantage here because of home field advantage. But I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell who the more talented team is just because both, all the teams in the Big 12 are pretty even. But Colorado and Kansas State, this one at 10:15 Eastern Time on ESPN. Next up, we got a big one here. Ohio State and Oregon, 7:30 Eastern Time on NBC. Ohio State favored by 3.5, and the over and under is at 52.5. Ohio State and Oregon, both teams undefeated at 5-0. Of course, meeting each other for the first time as Big Ten football teams. Ohio State coming off a big win against Iowa this past weekend. You got Oregon, that's coming off the win against Michigan State this past Friday. So I feel like Oregon has kind of, had more time to prepare for this Ohio State team than Ohio State has against this Oregon team. But, both of these teams are just so pretty even. In the preseason, I did predict Oregon to win this game. I will make a prediction on this game coming up tomorrow in my predictions video for Week 7. But I tell you what, this is a pretty even matchup here. It's a really tough one to call. I've been favoring Oregon ever since, the beginning of the season, but you never know. I might change my pick for tomorrow, but this is a pretty even matchup. I'm kind of surprised this is not like the Fox Big Noon kickoff game, for a Big Ten conference game. I kind of am surprised that it's not the Big Noon kickoff, but it will be a night game at 7:30 Eastern Time. This crowd will be fired up, and this might be the best game of the weekend, and also it might be the game of, the year and everything, even though Alabama, or I should say Georgia and Alabama was definitely the game of the year just so far, but, Ohio State and Oregon, this will definitely be a good one here. Again, both teams are undefeated, ranked in the top 5 in the AP poll. We will see what happens. We'll see if Oregon can pull off the upset here either. And Ohio State is on upset alert because they are favored in this one. So Ohio State and Oregon at 7:30 Eastern Time on NBC. Let's now go to my last most likely upset alert game for this weekend. It's not a big one, but I think it really is. Ole Miss and LSU at 7:30 Eastern Time on ABC. Ole Miss favored by 2.5, and the over and under is at 64.5. I think we're expecting a lot of points to be scored in this one. You got Ole Miss that's coming off a good win against South Carolina, good bounce-back win after their loss to Kentucky a couple weeks ago. LSU coming out of a bye week, so they've had some time to prepare here for this Ole Miss team. But when you come out of a bye week and kind of, prepare against a top 10 team, it normally doesn't really pay off, especially for Tennessee. They definitely did not look prepared against Arkansas, even though Arkansas was not even ranked and everything. But Arkansas just came out really fired up against Tennessee. I think LSU is going to do the same thing. They're going to come out really fired up here and try to be most explosive here on the offensive side of the football. You got both offenses. I think both offenses are pretty even. Defensively, we're going to see who the better defense is, and we'll see how good Ole Miss is against like a really good defense, or actually like against another defense here against like a ranked team and everything. But yeah, I do probably see an upset here happening. LSU upsetting Ole Miss. I think that wouldn't really shock me a lot, because if Ole Miss does lose this game, maybe their playoff hopes are over, and maybe LSU is still alive in the playoff hope. But yeah, both of these teams are just so pretty even, especially on the offensive side of the football. It's going to definitely come down to who has the better defense in this game. But we'll find out. Ole Miss and LSU, SEC Conference game at 7:30 Eastern Time on ABC. And again, the Rebels favored by 2.5. So those are my upset alert games heading into Week 7. Again, a big weekend here in college football for 2024 for Week 7 of the season. So let me guys know what you think about these upset alert games. Who do you see getting upsetted this weekend? Let me know down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.